What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ink, Drink, Think, Episode 6, Part 2. Today is the experimental episode, as we touched upon. We are inking each other's pencils on some incredibly cool X-Men characters. I'm your host, Michael Pickard, joined by always by my wonderfully talented co-hosts and friends, Johnny Wise. Johnny, you're up.
Hey, I'm Johnny. I'm halfway through inking Nate's drawing of Storm. Having a lot of fun with this. We were just saying, pretty weird inking over someone else's drawing and feeling like the heavy lifting and the legwork have already been done. This is a piece of from the back. So I'm just really glad I didn't have to go through all the references of the anatomy of a back. That's all been done for me.
I got you.
yeah, it's good. Everything's been done for me. I just get to have fun inking. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I've got most of it done. So now it's just time to play around with the background a little bit. So yeah, pretty good.
Nice, man. Still enjoying your mules?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just about finished this one
as
off,
it's empty.
Yeah, might be the end of it for now.
But suddenly your lines are just going to be like...
Yeah.
It's good that you're mostly done.
Yeah, it's good that I'm drawing lightning now. All I have to do is try and draw a straight line and it'll come out perfectly lightning.
Joining us as always is also our co-host, Nate Wells. Nate, you're up.
Hey guys, Nate Wells. I'm still drawing Todd's Cyclops. Really having a lot of fun with this. There's a lot of stuff that he's done that I would have approached differently. And it's funny, I was talking to the guys before we started recording how it's interesting that there are some things that he's done that it's exactly how I would have approached them. And so it's fun to find that those similarities as well as the differences, sort of like in the anatomy of this one. And he's tackled some of the shading like Kirby would have done, which I would not have done. Not that I'm not a Kirby fan. But yeah, now in this part, I'm going to be getting into a lot like Johnny, a lot of the background. I've got mostly the figure figured out, you know? Anyway, but yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this. Excited to get into finishing this piece. Still drinking my Lone Stars here. Proudly brewed in Texas since 1884. They're still not a sponsor of Ink, Drink, Think. So don't sue us. Anyway.
It's free advertising.
Yeah, dude, they'd love it.
Oh, yeah, no question. They want to be associated with comic books and nerds.
They definitely. We can just make it like a hipster thing. Lone Star is like a hipster beer. It's like Pabst, you know?
Yeah, it's cool to drink.
Yeah, it's like a hipster beer. Yeah.
And of course, last but not least, Teacher Todd himself, Todd Blackwood, the man, the myth, the legend. Todd, you are up.
Pretty much. I am working over Michael's pencils of Apocalypse, and it's gotten pretty weird. I definitely went off the rails and started getting kind of psychedelic, and there's all kinds of strange things going on. So a lot of that's different filters on top of each other, and then the neon, not neon, the light pen. Interesting things can happen. I do want to make sure he still looks like Apocalypse at the end of this, so I think I gotta kind of rein him in a little bit, but he's kind of looks like he's lives on the Tron world or something right now.
Don't rein it in at all. Oh my god, that's awesome.
Don't rein it in.
Yeah,
No.
You're blowing my mind right now, especially like
No, push it farther.
I need permission to do this.
if this was a relay, I passed you the baton, and then you went and did a Tough Mudder. Like we were on the track, and then you just went through the mud and over walls and climbed ropes. Like you just took it in a whole other direction, and it's so cool to see. It's so awesome.
I'm glad you like.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Good.
What you were talking about with Magneto's helmet going into the form of Apocalypse is, man, that's one, just like great eye for seeing that in Mike's layout, and two, just fucking killer execution.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh yeah,
It looks great.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I want to know what their connection is, if any. Or wait, Michael, tell me again why you put Magneto's helmet in the background. Like, was it just a design thing, or?
It was entirely just a design thing because Apocalypse in the
Oh.
comics is, I mean, granted he's a nearly 30-year-old character, so he's had a
Right.
lot of different interpretations and whatnot. But I just,
Yeah.
in my mind, when I was drawing out the pencils and I drew the basic shape for Apocalypse, I was trying to think about the layout, and I
Right.
was like, oh, a triangle makes sense based off this pose. And I was like, well, what can I put to finish the top peak
Yeah.
of that triangle? I was like, oh, Magneto's helmet. Quick, easy X-Men iconography.
So
I threw
there's
that in the
not-
background.
Wait, okay, but is there like, are they distant relatives, or is it just
Nope.
the fact that they're both villains?
No.
Or so there's wow.
They're
It's
villains.
So like with like Kang the Conqueror, Doctor Doom, and Reed Richards, I want to say Kang and Reed Richards are distant relatives
Yeah.
somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So I was assuming there was some sort of lineage there. Ah, that's really interesting that you happen to choose to put that helmet in the background now.
Well, if you want to give some kind of subconscious reasoning to it, Magneto,
Yeah.
of course, is the first X-Men villain, and in my mind,
Yeah.
Apocalypse is the last. As much as he's not always the best executed character, I think in
Yeah.
concept, the fact that he's the first mutant and he's this
Yeah.
villain that pops up constantly. He's constantly reincarnated, and he represents this old world way of thinking in the sense that
Huh.
the strong survive. We have to take over. We have to dominate.
Yeah.
Is the antithesis of like the X-Men concept that
Yeah.
it's all about inclusivity.
Yeah.
And so I guess if
And-
you want
yeah.
if you want to make me sound smart through me talking right now, it's that Magneto is the first
Well-
villain, Apocalypse is the last. But that was not intentional.
Totally.
I
No,
love
it
that.
sounds like-
I love that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll say
Something was
there's
going on.
also something to, and we've talked about this I think before on the show, about like commission pieces or just sketch pieces telling stories. And I think I don't remember who brought it up. It might have been you, Mike. The Andrew McLean Spider-Man Venom piece. How it feels like it's an excerpt from like a Spider-Man story. This the drawing that you and Todd have done now. It feels like it's a cover for an X-Men issue that I've never read.
Yeah.
And there's something really special in that, where it's like, this is a piece of storytelling that's from some imaginary story where Magneto and Apocalypse might have this tie that they would be visually connected in this composition. And I think that's just really cool. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
man.
So excellent
Well,
job,
you know-
both of you.
Yeah.
Lots
I-
of credit
I
to
could
Todd.
Well, but it's I think people see good ideas. People can make things that are good ideas, but they don't. It's not a conscious thing necessarily. But there's a reason why you did Magneto's helmet and not Wolverine's claws or something. Like I
Yeah.
see the connection your brain was making probably on some level. It'd be interesting to think of Apocalypse as like the demonic spirit that possesses Magneto, so that because Magneto sometimes goes from being a villain to being a hero, and that would have a interesting explanation as to why he vacillates back and forth. As
He
opposed
could
to-
be a
Yeah.
student or an acolyte of
Yeah.
an ancient Apocalypse. If Apocalypse was this Egyptian folk hero, maybe that's
Yeah.
why Magneto leans the way he does on mutant politics.
Yeah.
There's this predecessor to his philosophy, and
Yeah.
that's where this drawing comes in to illustrate that.
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
I want to touch on that in literally 30 seconds. I'll move through myself really quickly, and then we can get
Yeah.
into Magneto talk, because you can't have a conversation about the X-Men without Magneto. Anyway, guys, like I said at the beginning, I'm Mike Pickard. Tonight I'm working on pencils by Johnny, and these are some Weapon X Wolverine pencils wading through the snow, and it's nothing short of miraculous that I got to pick I got picked to do his pencils tonight, and it's coming out quite well. I'm very much enjoying drawing this piece. Anyway, let's
Yeah, it's
talk
looking good.
Magneto, because Magneto is, of course, the most iconic X-Men villain. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, possibly the greatest Marvel villain. I mean, Doctor Doom is a strong claim to fame, but I think there
Sure.
is something really important with Magneto in terms of his cultural heritage, the messages he represents, the real-world connections
Yeah.
he has to figures like Malcolm X.
Yeah.
I think he might be Marvel's greatest villain, but I'm open to hearing your opinions, even though they won't change mine.
Well, I think you might be onto something there. I like him better than
Yeah.
Doctor Doom, personally. I love Doctor Doom, but
Yeah.
Magneto might be right. Is the thing,
Yeah.
you know? In a
Yeah,
lot of ways,
I think you're right. Yeah, Magneto, he's like a Killmonger in the Black Panther movie. You can
Yeah.
side with him, and you're not wrong. You know.
Yeah.
And I think the comparison to Malcolm X is excellent because he and Professor X are Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. in the mutant debate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, Magneto says, no, we're not inferior to humans, and in fact, we're better than humans. Not that I don't want to quote Malcolm X here. I don't want to draw any comparisons to a supervillain to Malcolm X, but the difference in opinion, I think, is there. Whereas Magneto is an extremist in his opinion.
Right.
You know, he says we're not inferior. We are as good as or superior to humans. And if
Yeah.
they're going to fight us, we're going to fight right the fuck back.
yeah,
And I think that's incredible. And he's right, and Professor X is right in his we
Yeah.
can just coexist.
There's two
Whereas
sides to it.
Magneto says, no, we can't coexist. No.
Yeah.
They
Which is different.
hate us, so we're justified in our hate of them, and any violent acts that we do are directly in response to their hate of us. And so we're justified. And that's really where he's coming from, and I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't think I could touch upon that and add anything. I think that's very poignant to what makes Magneto fantastic.
He's sympathetic,
Yeah.
or can be.
He's a villain you can get on board with, you know. And
Yeah.
and he was like that in the X-Men movies, and I think
Yeah.
the predecessor or the ancestor of that, I should say, was Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger in the Black Panther movie, where
Yeah.
you're not wrong if you say Killmonger's in the right. It's a more extreme view, but
well,
you're
yeah,
not
'cause I
necessarily wrong.
I kind of came away from Black Panther thinking that the only flaw in the film for me was that I still didn't think he was wrong by the end. You know, and he
That's
like
right.
dies and has that whole thing about like, yeah, just throw me in the water. You know that I won't try and
Yeah.
redo it, but that whole bit, and you're like, yeah, he's still right. They
It
Black
begs the
Panther is still
question:
not the hero.
Is he the villain of the story? Is Black Panther the hero? Is Killmonger the villain? And it's the same thing in X-Men. Are the X-Men the heroes? Is Magneto the villain? And I think the most incredible stories from those worlds come from asking that question. And it's nuanced storytelling in comics in the fucking 60s at its best,
Yeah.
where you're asking those big questions.
Here's something I'm
Yeah.
curious about. Is Magneto still a Holocaust survivor
He
I
is.
would
in like
be shocked if
modern
they changed
comics? How do they work that in? Because isn't it set in like the future now, and he's what, like just got somewhat graying hair?
Oh.
What's the deal there?
It's almost like the same unaddressed thing of Peter Parker was 16 in 1962. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's one of those like don't ask, don't tell things about Marvel Comics where it's like,
Yeah.
it's absolutely true. No question. Magneto is a Holocaust survivor. But,
Well, it's certainly not something I think they should get rid of.
of course, yeah. But actually, to that point, because there's a lot of talk of how are they going to incorporate the X-Men into the MCU now that Disney now owns the distribution rights to the X-Men, I think there's a really great place for a modern interpretation of Magneto that isn't associated with the Holocaust, but perhaps a different cultural either genocide or mistreatment or oppression, whether he's
Right.
Vietnamese, which could be interesting, or
Yeah, that would be cool.
He could be South African.
South African, absolutely. Or even within our own country, sans Johnny, he could have just been a child during the Civil Rights Movement. There's a lot of different places you could take Magneto with other historic touchstones and keep the same concept of my people were oppressed or hated or downtrodden, and like this
Right.
is my way of standing against that and never letting it happen again.
Because sadly, that's
Yeah.
something that there's not just one example of in our modern history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have a lot of people that you could culturally pull from
Right.
to make that character work. Again, unfortunately, because there's so many terrible people out there.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you.
Do you guys have a fan casting for Magneto at all? Is there any actors you would throw in that role? Daniel Craig is someone for me that if they were to keep him Caucasian or just reboot the character in his traditional roots of being a Holocaust survivor, I think Daniel Craig would be an absolutely stellar Magneto.
I think
that would be very cool.
I think keeping him white, Jeremy Irons, could be really
Oh yeah.
could be
Yeah.
really menacing, as well as
Yeah.
sympathetic. Yeah.
Depends on whether they're going to cast a young guy or an old guy. You know, because like with
Right.
Daniel Craig,
Right.
like, if he lasts 10 years, as opposed to somebody that they want young in the role. I mean, I have no idea. I'll be curious.
That's the thing with the Ian McKellen thing. In
Yeah.
2000, he was already a pretty old guy, and so I guess my casting choice was based on Magneto being sort of a veteran role model for the mutant extremists. But yeah, there's definitely some. Any incredible actor. I think Rami Malek could be
Oh yeah.
an incredible villain or character who hasn't been introduced into the MCU, and a great actor.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people.
Yeah.
I think if he wasn't already in the Marvel Universe, Idris Elba would be good.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, definitely.
if he wasn't Heimdall, the character that people love so much, Heimdall.
Forgot about
Exactly.
that.
Oh,
Like, they
my
could
favorite
just fucking
MCU
do it
character,
anyway, couldn't they?
Heimdall.
Right?
You could do it. He's so heavily under makeup in that role that people wouldn't think twice about it. Anymore.
They don't even care.
Anymore,
They
I
could just use a throwaway line where if Thor ever meets him, he could just be like, "Hey, you look familiar." Fuck it. That's all
Yeah.
you need to do.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
Idris
mean,
Elba
Chris
has that
Evans played the
charisma.
Human Torch.
Yeah.
He is
Yeah, like
he is one of the
Silver
most
Age, but-
incredible actors working right now. Idris
Yeah.
Elba.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting, thinking about the cultural context of Magneto and why he is the way he is, and how, like, in casting that role for film or really for comics, because you could culturally cast him different in comics. Would Marvel allow it? It's interesting. One, the different things you could pull from, and two, it just opens the entire world of the X-Men up. Not even just Magneto. Every single mutant it opens up to different cultural interpretations.
Yeah. It does, but it also, like, once they do it, they're going to be set in stone. And, like, if they're going to make it more about, say, a race metaphor or whatever, it's going to be one of those things where they can't be like, oh, if we do it this way, it's not going to work to do this other storyline that we were going to do later on or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but
no, and I think I see what you're saying, and you do have, in terms of the movies and I guess the comics, you do have Black Panther as a vehicle to tell, the way they set it up, a vehicle to tell racial stories, at least between black and white, and X-Men could be an interesting vehicle to, as it has been in the comics, to tell stories about gay stories, trans stories, just stories of the other. And if you do have a Black Panther X-Men, I think should be the route to do the other stories, the other. That's why Magneto is one of the great Marvel villains, is because he's not just a villain. He doesn't want to take over the world, necessarily. Mm-hmm. He wants justice for the people like him, and he thinks he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the quote from Captain America Civil War, where Spider-Man says to Captain America, Mr. Stark said that you thought you were right, but you're wrong, and that makes you dangerous. And that embodies Magneto to a T. He thinks he's right, and his cause is just.
Yeah.
That makes him dangerous, because he'll do anything in his power, because it's what he morally believes in.
Yeah, that's the thing, is, like, he's not wrong. Just, the way... name any other supervillain. Lex Luthor just wants to kill Superman because he doesn't like him. It's wrong. The Joker wants to wreak havoc on Gotham. That's wrong. Magneto wants his people to prosper. He just maybe doesn't have the best plan to get there. And that's where it gets really gray and really nuanced.
Like I said, Magneto is just the greatest Marvel villain.
He might just be.
He might just be. I brought some potatoes.
I'll be really curious. I'll be really curious what they do with Doctor Doom in the MCU, though. I do think that we should get ready for one of the great villains of all time finally getting the treatment he deserves, and which I hope.
I sure hope so.
Yeah,
I've said all along, the FF is ripe for the way they do those movies with the Disney MCU movies. The FF fits so well in that mold. It's insane that we're just now getting there. And I know that there was like rights problems and Fox and all that, but if there was ever a Marvel book to be adapted in that fashion, it's the Fantastic Four.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
I was just going to say that all of that talk that we've just done about Magneto and him not being wrong and, having an argument to be made and shit, that's kind of the opposite is why I like Doctor Doom. Because he is just a big fucking villain. Like, just an insane villain with a big metal face.
Yeah.
And you just listen to any MF Doom and you just get it.
Well, he's super.
Doom.
He's super egotistical. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. Whereas, Magneto,
honestly,
in his own mind, he explains things to himself as.
Yeah, maybe it's because I haven't read enough stuff with Doctor Doom in it, but I've never thought he has like a grand motivation that people can understand. I've just been like, no, Doom is just fucking Doom. He's just this big fucking horrible villain.
Yeah. Well, supposedly he hates Reed Richards. He's got more like he and Reed Richards knew each other in college and were kind of competitive with each other.
Yeah,
there's
I was aware of that. But then
And his
from there, it
mother-
seems like he's just
Yeah.
turned into this this big old villain, just this big Darth Vader.
He's
But
he's
even-
fun.
Big old villain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a big old villain. Exactly. And that's kind of the reason I like him, which is the opposite to the reason I like Magneto.
He but it's interesting because he also rules a country, and
Mhm.
everybody in the country that he rules seem to really love him. And the FF are always perplexed because they're like, I'm confused. Do they love him or are they scared of him? And it seems like it's a little of both.
Hmm.
And they
That is
always
cool.
leave that out of the movies, that he's like
He's a
the
hacker.
king of a country.
Yeah.
They're always like, no, he's like a tech guy. Or he's
Yeah.
CEO.
He's a vlogger.
Yeah. Like, no, he's not the president of,
You've
the
heard of
bad.
Victor
He's
Von
not the
Doom.
Russia or North Korea or whatever. Whoever the bad guys are, he's not that guy. He's like Jeff Bezos. You're like, no, he's not.
Yeah.
You've heard of Victor Von Doom. Now get ready for Victor Von Domashev. Such a terrible choice.
I really like that they decided
I like
that,
it.
having not had a definitive version on screen yet, being like, nope, I'm gonna do a twist on it. No, do
Right.
the actual thing first.
Yeah, you can't do the take until the thing is there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I hope they get him right. Unless you meant a different thing than Ben Grimm.
Right, yeah, I guess I made a joke accidentally.
Oh, wait. Were you not talking about Ben Grimm?
No, definitely get the thing right. I love Michael Chiklis,
Yeah.
but definitely get the thing right.
Yeah.
I thought Michael.
I love what was it Jamie Bell?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love him too. That
that's
movie's
a good-
terrible.
That's good.
The
casting.
entire cast of that movie is phenomenal.
In the Josh Trank movie?
Yeah, Fan Forstic. And I actually really
Yeah.
like Josh Trank because I'm a big Chronicle fan.
Chronicles.
Huh.
Yeah, Chronicle was good.
But God, that movie's bad.
That's too bad. I've heard that Chronicle's really good. I haven't seen it, but
Chronicle's great.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fan Forstic is such a missed opportunity because I remember when the first trailer dropped and Josh Trank had talked about how he was planning on making it a very body horror-esque Cronenberg-type film. And even though that doesn't scream the Fantastic Four of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, I think that could have been
Sure,
a really
yeah.
interesting take on those characters.
And you can see those elements
Yeah.
in the movie,
it just got neutered.
but
Right.
yeah. It's just not there's not enough of it for that to be the take on them. And then there's so much of like maybe the studio going, we want to make a Fantastic Four movie, that everything else just gets so I don't know, there's so much about that movie that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
That's too bad.
Yeah, I also understand the studio though because it's like, okay, we have these fun, iconic superhero characters. Let's sell some toys. And then Josh Trank presents Fan Forstic in his mind, which is a Cronenberg body horror, which isn't necessarily the way to sell toys
Yeah.
in 2020, but
Well, then just don't hire Josh Trank. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. I agree.
If that's not what you want, then don't hire him. Don't ruin his career. I mean, he did plenty of ruining his own career, probably,
Yeah, absolutely.
while making that really stressful movie. Because I think that movie had a lot to do with his sort of fall from grace. But yeah, I mean, just a tragedy of cinema is Fan Forstic.
Same with Suicide Squad. Admittedly, now that we're getting away from X-Men a little bit.
Yeah,
But
man, and
David
I
Ayer
am
is
such
incredible.
a David Ayer fan.
Yeah.
I'm such
And-
a David Ayer fan.
End of Watch is just an incredible movie. And when he was
Fury,
yeah,
his
that's-
tank movie is one of my favorite movies of all
Oh,
time.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
Fury.
Yeah.
I love Fury so much.
I think he was.
I was so excited, but yeah, terrible movie.
He was a
Suicide
perfect
Squad.
choice for Suicide Squad from a directorial standpoint, from a creative standpoint. It just didn't work out. It just wasn't the time or the place, especially with how little time he had to develop the script, and the DCU as a whole was just in shambles by the time that the third movie was coming out.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the right time or place, but I think there is a universe out there where Suicide Squad is a beloved superhero movie. The first one.
Yeah.
I have hopes for the
Yeah.
second one, but
Yeah, now they're just letting James Gunn have as much fun as he wants, and I'm sure David Ayer is just going, "Oh, okay. Well, really? Really, dude?"
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I wonder if they came to him first at all and were like, "Hey, we're thinking about making a sequel, like with a little more creative freedom. Are you interested?" Or was it the whole Guardians of the Galaxy 3
Nah.
situation with James Gunn?
I doubt it. I doubt it. I
Yeah,
mean, I hope
he
so,
lost
but I
all-
really doubt it.
I think he'd lost all good faith by then. I don't think they
Yeah.
went to him at all.
Which movie?
For
Suicide Squad,
2.
yeah.
Hmm.
I think I might be done.
Damn, already?
Yeah.
Start coloring, man. I got a lot to do.
Might start coloring. Yeah, maybe I'll
Start coloring, man.
I don't know how I'm going to color this. Maybe I'll color it. All right. Let's see what I can do.
I was kidding. You don't have to actually color.
No. You've spoken.
The great Poobah has spoken.
Oh, let's multiply that.
Yeah, I'm mostly fixing mistakes now because I thought I could do stuff that I was not ready to do.
Damn, Speed Racers. We're only just starting part 2. Like, I just broke out the brush. I'm just getting into some of the nitty gritty shading right now.
But you know what I might do? I might scan it and also like Johnny's doing, get into colors and fix
Yeah.
some of the things digitally that I'm not liking about the traditional inks. After all, I am inking a Todd drawing, and Todd is now a digital artist, so it would be wrong to not get into digitals.
Mm.
Also,
support
I
that.
can, for the first time on Ink Drink Think, do digital stuff and show you guys how inept I am at digital art. I might do that. I might scan this real quick, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Mute myself real quick
F it,
because
we'll
my
do it
dog
live.
is playing with a rope and being really loud. Sadie, what are you doing? Sadie, what? All right. Anyway,
Johnny, this might be the most traditionally inked thing I've ever done.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I think that's a credit to your penciling.
Oh, thank you. I'm straining my neck to look, but it's looking good from where I am.
Thanks, man.
As long as you're having fun. I can't wait to see it when I can properly see it.
Yeah, ironically, this is finally starting to look like Apocalypse. I put the. I think the thing that was lacking were those lines that go around his mouth.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, you gotta have them, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's Apocalypse.
I don't know what they are, but they're essential.
Yeah, I don't know what they are either. Yeah, his design's really interesting. It's a Walt Simonson design. And it's interesting because I was such a huge Walt Simonson fan. You guys Walt Simonson fans?
I appreciate
I
his
don't
work, but I've
know.
never read anything of him.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
huge Walt Simonson fan.
Yeah, me too. If you haven't read his Thor, oh man, do yourself a favor. You'll love it. His Thor is classic. And one of those guys that was writing, penciling, and inking his own work for most of it, which is just breakneck and crazy. But when he went to X Factor as just a penciler, and I think his wife was writing the book, I was really excited, but there was something about the inking that just didn't work for me, with him being inked by somebody else. And so X Factor is one of those that I'd like to go back and reread, and maybe I just didn't follow it closely enough. Maybe I didn't get enough of a chance. There's standout issues though. In particular, I was going to mention there's an issue. Issue of I keep saying episodes.
This is a comic book show, Todd.
I know, man. I keep saying Batman when I want to say James Bond, but there's an issue of X Factor that he drew with Cyclops fighting the Master Mold Sentinel, and he's just wearing his visor, and I think that in my opinion, that was the basis for the Jim Lee design and why they changed it. Is I think that issue is just so good that I think Jim Lee went and took that and was like, that's what I want to do. I would say, I think if there's any issue of X Factor you should go and get, it's that one. I don't know what issue it is. I'd have to look, but it's really good.
What year was that circa? Do you know?
I'm going to guess 87 or 88. And it was that era of Marvel where things really started to fall apart for me. They started relying more on crossover storylines that I think a lot of the writers on the books had ideas set up that they suddenly had to abandon. And we're like, oh, wait, you mean I have to tie all this in with Atlantis attacks or some other thing? And I think that the stories just started really kind of falling apart and becoming uninteresting, and there'd been so much great continuity up until then, and I don't know. Plus, they were like trying to be more grim and gritty. Like Dark Knight had come out and been very popular, but it was like by people who a lot of people couldn't pull it off. They would try, but it was pretty. They just didn't have the tools for it. Yeah.
Wait, Dark Knight or Batman? Oh, the Dark Knight, the book. I get
Dark Knight Returns. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think is great, but the people who tried to emulate that book, I thought most of them face planted.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To me, that was a real head scratcher. Is that Batman Year One came out, 4 issues of 4 of my favorite comics ever, and you'd think they would try to emulate that somehow in the preceding issues of Batman, and yet they went straight back into this pedestrian Jim Aparo drawn story that just, I was like, it wasn't until the Batman animated show came out that I thought, oh, okay, this is a Batman I'm interested in again. Maybe somebody's taking all the right lessons from Frank Miller and taking that ball and running with it. But anyways, what was I talking about? X Factor? Cyclops?
Yeah. Walt Simonson, X Factor.
Yeah. Yeah. Cyclops is the most tragic character to me in the X-Men, and that's why he's so appealing. He's the one that bad things always seem to happen to, and he's so pent up all the time. At least, I don't know what he's like these days. Although I think he fool around with the White Queen or whatever, Emma Frost.
Yeah, he did.
I didn't think that was a very good idea. I don't quite understand that stuff. But whatever.
Are there any Marvel villains who may be villains for another character who you think could be X-Men villains? In the same way that Sabretooth was an Iron Fist villain originally? But in reverse?
Within the Marvel universe?
let's go multiversal. You could do DC, you could do Dark Horse, you could do anybody. It could be Hellboy's Rasputin if you'd like.
Well, Hellboy's fun no matter. I'd love to see a Hellboy Fantastic Four crossover. I think Hellboy and Ben Grimm having a conversation is long overdue.
Oh yeah.
I would even say Ben Grimm is one of the secret inspirations for Hellboy. That's just so it's almost so obvious that it's it's overlooked and hard to see.
Yeah.
In a sense, but that hand that Hellboy has looks like the Thing to me. And I know that Mignola was about to do a Fantastic Four X-Men crossover, but decided to stick with Hellboy instead. But there's pinups of it you can see. So he was drawing Ben Grimm at that point. We're getting ready to. I don't know. What does a good X-Men villain mean? Okay, actually, yeah. Alpha Flight, and by Alpha Flight, I don't mean Alpha Flight. I mean I think Alpha Flight's vastly underused and underrated, and I think you could make an evil X-Men team out of like Gamma Flight or Beta Flight.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
As like a better version of like the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which has always sounded kind of stupid. Or it could be done, but the I don't know, the connection between Alpha Flight and X-Men never seemed to get fully explored in a proper way. Probably because John Byrne and Chris Claremont had a falling out, and Byrne was, I think, territorial about Alpha Flight. That is my guess. Yeah, but to me, like one of the greatest moments. Like if you haven't read the stuff, I really would pick up a couple of those old issues of X-Men. That whole storyline where Wolverine is basically a defector from Weapon X, and Weapon X is essentially Alpha Flight. Really, they don't really talk about it as much as they should, but and Alpha Flight comes back and says, Wolverine's our property, we're taking him back, and the X-Men, stick up for him. And that seeing that the X-Men and Alpha Flight fighting in an airport is, like, to me still my favorite. That to me is the X-Men. The scene in Captain America Civil War between the Iron Man team and the Captain America team, to me, is iconically based on those issues of X-Men and Alpha Flight clashing at the airport. I love that. Love it. Such a great story.
That's a good choice too, because I wouldn't have thought to do Alpha Flight as that villain take.
They were at odds. They were at odds with the X-Men. They've got that. They clashed with the X-Men a bunch early on, and it wasn't until later that they became the good super team, because they weren't bad in their own, and they weren't Magneto. They weren't fanatics. It was more like they were just doing what they were told. And technically, they did pay for and build Wolverine, and they wanted their property back, and the government told them to do it, and they were just doing what they were told. But they questioned it, and I think the book never got. John Byrne went on from X-Men to writing, drawing, and inking Fantastic Four and Alpha Flight at the same time. And Fantastic Four was like the best book probably at Marvel at that point. Ironically, though, Alpha Flight was really well drawn, but it was a kind of a snooze. It was interesting. He was doing one book that was so great, and this other book was like him on autopilot, which is still better than most people, especially during that era. But it never, the book I think I had in mind that I thought I was going to read versus what I ended up reading would be very different. Alpha Flight would be really fun to do. I would tackle Alpha Flight if given the chance. The more I think about it, I really hope I have a feeling Marvel's going to bring them out, and if they can make a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I think Alpha Flight's gonna be huge. I have a feeling that they're gonna they know they got good stuff there, and they're gonna give them a good proper due.
Let's get some
I think
Sasquatch.
yeah. Well, I think there's going to be a Hulk Wolverine movie, and I think Alpha Flight's going to be featured prominently in it as a background character, and reintroducing the whole Weapon X program. You know, who knows how exactly that'll work, but they could roll Alpha Flight, Hulk, and Wolverine into his origin story, and whatever, introduce the X-Men. There's all kinds of things they could do there. Yeah, needs to happen.
But that ties back to my point that Wolverine is intrinsically a Hulk character.
Yeah, totally.
He's
Nope.
not an X-Man.
Nope.
He's not. He's not. He was many years ago for like 5 seconds, and now he's not.
Well, he's an X-Men by choice, but he's also a Canadian, so he's an Alpha Flight member, but he's also nobody's. You know, he's Wolverine, man. Nobody tells him what to do. That's why we all love him. You know.
He's also a card-carrying Avenger. That man is on too many
See
teams.
I don't know. Do you guys like that? I'm not into that.
Who gives a shit about the Avengers?
In the comics, not me.
This is the X-Men episode.
Yeah. I don't think Spider-Man should be in the Avengers either. That whole, I just don't. It's like, ugh, what? Did we run out of ideas? What's going on here?
Well, it's the same problem with the Justice League, and it's one thing that's I'll give credit to the X-Men for, is that
Yeah.
like at some point with like Justice League International, who isn't a member?
Mhm. Right.
At some point you have to have a cutoff, and that's something I appreciate about the X-Men is that Spider-Man will never be a recurring member of the X-Men. He might show up for an issue or two to team up.
Oh, as a guest star, he's great.
yeah,
absolutely.
But he will never be an X-Men. And
Yeah.
that's something I can appreciate about that team because anybody in the Marvel Universe could be an Avenger, and most of them have. But only a select few could ever be an X-Man.
Right.
What have you guys found to be the most challenging thing about tonight's exercise in inking someone else's work?
Well, this is a cheat answer, but since you said in inking someone else's work, but coloring. Once I got to coloring what I'd inked, I don't like what I'm doing at all. But when I get rid of all of that and go straight back to the inks, because the way I inked it was really, really graphic, I like that a lot better. So I don't think I'm going to post the colored version. But
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But the actual inking Nate's work went really well. So
Yeah, that's great though.
Yeah. I think for me, like just figuring out like where is going too far, and making sure I try to stay true to the drawing that you gave me, Michael, without like being timid or being like, oh, I can't do that. It's like, well, it's, you know, maybe let's go too far and then scale it back, or not. I don't know, but I'm definitely having fun with it.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Because I mean, we're not like inking like real comics jobs here,
Yeah, that's true.
and so you can definitely have a little more fun with it. I think, rather than like being afraid to offend a penciler,
Yeah,
you know, or something like that. You know, you are kind of in a safe place to, you know, take sort of the construction of a drawing and have fun with it.
mm-hmm.
And it's also good to get you out of the box of like oh, I know exactly what I'm doing when I approach my own pencils and my own inking. Whereas this is totally alien to me. Like the way that Johnny placed his inks or his blacked areas is totally different than the way I traditionally would think about it. And so for me, like expanding my perspective on how to approach inking is definitely beneficial. But it's also difficult because it's not necessarily how I'm inclined to do it, but I'm learning, which is good. And I think it's turning out really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely an exercise that we should revisit.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like I've learned a lot about just like even inking myself in the future. I'll look for a little more probably in the pencils than I would have before. You know, because like I said before, I'm completely trusting what Todd has laid down to make it work, and maybe I should do that with myself more. Like, you did the work in the penciling phase. You don't have to completely redraw it. You can rely on a little bit of what you've done before to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times when I'm inking myself, I'm sort of going, okay, here's the real drawing. Disregard what you've done before, and it doesn't really need to be that way.
Yeah. I've painted over Jack Kirby a couple times, and that was something that kind of surprised me, is I kind of have this fantasy in my head of going in and fixing a bunch of things as I paint over him. And yet the more I tried to do it, the more I was like, what am I doing? And I ended up just sort of giving in. I think it's what you're saying. I was giving in to the marks and being like, oh, I think I'm just going to trust what this guy's doing. There were times, it was more like I had to look at it and think, what am I looking at here? What is that? I know that's a Kirby interpretation of a something. Is that a shadow coming off her nose? What is that? But it like he knew what he was doing. And also our half an hour is up, just so you guys know.
All right, that's cool. Do you guys want to like mark down where we're all at right now and call it a night, or how are you guys feeling? Do you want to keep going, or?
I'm good to do whatever.
I should probably bow out here pretty soon.
Mike Pence is here with a fly on his head, so we're all good.
Okay, we could do we could wrap it up there and call that the end of part 2 if you guys want. We could well, I mean, we'll have to do the circle around, see how we're all doing, but
sure.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, let's bop around a little bit. I'm gonna hop in on Johnny's real quick as he's tapping Storm.
Yo. Yep, so pretty much done here. I was reworking some of the stuff I was doing with the face right when you came back in, but really just kind of playing around with what I've already got finished. Let's see. I was pretty happy with how the lightning came out. I did some
oh yeah,
that looks
appropriate effects and shit. But yeah, come out good. I think I'm really happy with this one.
Yeah, we definitely have to collaborate some more, man. I'm just gonna send you pencils, and I'll just expect you to ink them.
Yeah, same with you,
just
Mike.
for I think just for like every drawing that I do from now on. I'll just send them to you and be like, "Hey, I really want to post this on Instagram tonight. So, like, can you please finish?"
Yeah, give me a deadline.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you do that to me, I'll do it right back to you, man. I'll send them over.
Yeah, dude, that sounds good. Yeah, next time I definitely want to ink. Now that I've inked Todd a little bit and failed quite a bit, I really want to ink Mike and Johnny now and just ruin y'all's drawings as well.
Yeah, I'm really keen to get inking on Mike's and Todd's.
And I mean the inking part, you're not going to ruin anything, don't worry. But yeah, I definitely want to see you guys combinations and as well as work over you guys as well.
Yeah, this has been crazy. I'm gonna hop over to Nate right now because I can see his work over Johnny's right now, and it's awesome.
Excuse me.
I'm getting really weird. There's so many influences on it right now. I'm getting things of like Gendy Tartakovsky's Luke Cage miniseries. Like I'm getting like cartoonist vibes from it, which makes sense because it's you two collaborating on this.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah,
that's fucking high praise, dude. Todd, we killed it. We killed it. We killed it.
There's a lot of flavor to that. That's awesome.
Awesome.
No, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I said that I was gonna fix a lot of stuff digitally, and I am probably when I post, I am gonna post the digital stuff over here because I like added some effects. There's a little bit of a flair to the blast here coming out of Cyclops, but the traditional stuff I could probably push a little farther. But there was a little bit of that timidness of like I don't want to shy away too far from what was laid down, and I felt more confident maybe doing that digitally. But yeah, like I've said before, I feel like I learned a lot doing this, and I focused more, like I said, on the mark making than I would necessarily the drawing of it, and that's a really valuable thing, I think. And couldn't have picked a better guy to ink for the first time who wasn't myself. Todd, yeah, thanks for sharing this Cyclops drawing with me.
Thank you, man. That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
But I have to say I'm excited to get a better look at it because, like I said, my screen's so small that I have to wait until I can actually, turn away from what I'm doing here. But it looks great from what I can see.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll be sure to post it pretty soon.
Yeah, we definitely need to in the group chat send each other right after we're done recording closer updates because I'm like dying to share what I'm doing with Johnny. Like I'm like, oh man, you gotta see what I'm doing with this, man.
I really want to see it. Yeah, I can't see it properly yet, so I'm dying to see it.
Well, here we'll bop over to Todd real quick.
Sure.
How's Apocalypse looking?
Good overall. I put a bunch of Kirby crackle around his fists and some stuff, and I'm starting to think. Can't decide. Like maybe it's better that way instead. I was maybe overdoing it with the power energy coming off his hands, but yeah.
That's looking fantastic.
Yeah, it's so trippy.
Yeah, that's looking insane.
It was fun, man.
That looks like a heavy metal album cover from the 80s.
Yeah, looks like a Judas Priest album cover, huh?
Yeah.
Apocalypse later.
Apocalypse later. I love that.
Metal gods.
That's awesome, dude. What did you do for the background texture? Is that like a watercolor texture or?
Which one? The smoke?
Yeah, the smoke. How did you illustrate that?
Oh, that is a smoke brush. So that is, or maybe I use clouds, or I use cotton. I think I forget now, but I think it's this cotton brush right here. And then I just go through and I might have added some nebula in there or something. But yeah, there's some brushes that... the other thing I do, though, is I'll do that, but then I'll fade it out or use like a little bit of a blur just to make it look more organic and not drawn by a computer. There's little tricks you can make to... make the lines not quite so sharp and not so obviously drawn by a computer. So I'll do a lot with that. And plus I also moved it, I stretched it. I do a lot of, let's see, telling me to decide which but like with the fire, for instance, I was pushing and pulling and seeing what worked there, which is fun when you can just push a button and it goes straight back so that you're not going to wreck it. Or if I really want to experiment, I'll actually copy the whole thing and make 2 copies, and then one I can just go wild and destroy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
be like, whoops.
That's
That's
what I always do when I go digital. I
yeah.
always copy the original and then just completely fuck with.
Yeah.
And that's always the one that ends up being the good one. Usually is the one that I just completely fuck with.
Usually, but I'm always glad I have the backup just in case.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna
But,
say, Todd and Johnny, not to steal the spotlight from you guys. This is what Fresco looks like. It's like I said before, it's Adobe's answer to Procreate, so it's very out of the way. Everything's just on the sides here. I usually don't draw with it like landscape oriented like this, but the layers are just over here, and then everything else is over here.
Okay, cool.
If you guys are interested in that, I'd definitely give it a shot. If you're not,
for sure.
I mean, Procreate's great. Procreate is phenomenal, and I love it. But I was looking for something like just a little bit different, just because there's no reason at all that I was looking for something different. But I was glad when Fresco came out.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's nice because if you use Photoshop at all, you can just save it, and it's immediately available on Photoshop.
Yeah, right.
How long have you
Yeah,
been
that's a good
working with
feature.
Just this year, actually. I don't remember when it came out, but yeah, just this year I've been working with Fresco, because before I was Procreate and Clip Studio, depending on what I was working on. And it was always just colors, but I really started to enjoy drawing in both of those, and I do enjoy drawing in Fresco as well, because it gives you, here's like this streamline, they call it smoothing in Fresco, and there's different like ways you can shape dynamic, scattering, transfer, just all the ways you can modify a brush, and any of the other ones you can do in this one as well. But I will say, if you do have custom brushes that you like in the other ones, like, definitely keep with that, because they're not easily transferable over.
Right.
Depending on what kind of file type the brushes are in. That's something that I've struggled with a little bit. I've had brushes that I've loved for like Clip Studio that I haven't been able to transfer over to Fresco, and that's been kind of frustrating.
That's interesting. Yeah, I totally understand how people get stuck in their tools and are like, I would experiment and try this new program, but I feel safe doing what I've known. I totally
Yeah, I mean,
that.
if it works, why would you mess with it?
Yeah, exactly.
The unknown is scary, man.
Yeah, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What H.P. Lovecraft said.
Mike, I see you're turning the drawing upside down.
Yeah,
What
there was one thing I was like, I should probably do that before we call it a night here. But I'll zip around to myself real quick just to show the audience.
Why are you turning the drawing upside down there?
Just to not put my hand over the art itself. Just out of fear of potentially there's something wet in this area that I don't want to just go whoop and smear all over the place. But yeah, I was just filling in the shape around the snowflake over there.
I didn't know if it was like a wet ink thing, or if it was a lot of times if you look at a drawing upside down, you can kind of see like what's wrong with it, like mirroring it or whatever. I didn't know what you were doing there.
Yeah, I was flipping it around so I could figure out what the hell Johnny did wrong here.
Yeah, you gotta, dude. You gotta watch this guy.
Flip it every
You gotta
way
watch
just to
this.
figure out what I've done.
There's 3 professionals and an amateur, and I don't want to name names,
It
but
rhymes with Wani Jais.
yeah.
But yeah, so I was doing Weapon X.
Johnny, you're fucking amazing, dude. I love you. I'm so glad that you were the one that got to ink my pencils.
Oh,
Anyway,
you, man. Yeah,
Mike's
I had a lot of
drawing
fun with
upside down.
Yeah.
Let's get back to that.
Yeah. So I was really having fun with this background here, just in terms of outlining everything, prepping it for the heavy shading like I've done around Wolverine's head here. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with this drawing. It's something that I've never anticipated enjoying. I never assumed that working over someone else's art would feel so liberating and so much fun. You would think that, oh, well, if I don't have full creative control over something, it's not going to be exactly what I want it to be. But I found with this drawing in particular, I'm doing things that I'm pulling from my subconscious, like little cartooning techniques. Like you'll see it when I, inevitably, if you're listening, when I post this final piece of art. But for you guys, when I send you the piece in 10 minutes when we're done recording, and you see the little stroke marks I did on the trees, I'm like pulling out subtle cartooning tricks from like Calvin and Hobbes and like influences that I would never have thought to pull from, but I did on this one. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, I think it like totally revolutionized certain things that I was doing, but I think it came out really well so far. And I'm excited to finish
That's
up with these bushes down here at the bottom and wrapping up this background and getting in some of this tree detailing finished. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with how this turned out.
Yeah, man.
the-
Dude, I love
same.
trees so much. I love trees so much. Like, I'm so excited that you get to draw these trees right now.
The main thing I changed from Johnny's pencils were I gave Wolverine nipples. Hopefully that's not too offensive. For
Oh yeah,
more
no, I
conservative
played around
you
with the
out there.
idea, but then I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave that open to interpretation.
I
If you
threw
want to
them
do
in.
that, you do that.
I threw them in, man. If you're gonna show the hairy chest, you gotta show everything.
Yeah,
That's right.
You gotta fucking freeze it. Dude, Johnny, oh my god, you were just fucking annihilating what I did. Half-assed on those pencils. Oh my god.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you did the legwork, so I've just been able to just relax and just do my thing with this one. I do have to keep going back to those hands. I keep looking at those hands, and I'm like, fuck. I'm just going to pretend I drew these all by myself.
Yeah, thank you, man. I was hoping that you wouldn't completely adhere to the shading of those hands because I completely made it up. Because the hands were not included in the reference, so I did not know if they were accurate to life or not. But I'm glad to see that through your lens that they're still working.
Yeah, definitely. This is, I mean, I pretty much just worked with the shading you had, but it seemed to work to my eye anyway.
Yeah, man, you fucking killed it. You killed
Thanks,
it, my
man.
guy. Fuck. Said it before, dude. I'm a fan. I've got a guy I'm a huge fan of inking my work. I couldn't be a happier fella right now.
Yeah, that's actually the cool thing about doing this together is the fact that we're all admirers of each other's work, and we're always looking at each other's work in terms of like, oh, how did you do that? Like, oh, I really like the way you do this. And to do this circle element of, oh, he does mine, he does yours, you do his. It's really cool to see because it's like, oh, somebody I'm a fan of is currently going crazy ballistic with photoshopping and digitally editing right now. And
it's mad.
And I would hope for Johnny,
Yeah, awesome.
oh my god,
Awesome.
like, look at the way Mike's doing this, and for Todd with Nate, and Nate with Johnny,
Yeah.
and the infinite
for
loop
sure.
continues. But yeah, it was such a cool experiment to do this. I'm 100% open to doing this again in the near future because I
We
had a lot of fun.
definitely have to
Definitely.
do this again.
Definitely,
We definitely
yeah.
have to do this again. Yeah. I think at least until we all ink each other's stuff, we got to do this again. This was a fun time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really love this, and I'm eager to throw out there that we should ink each other's Batman for a potential episode. But that would
Oh
be,
my
that
God,
would be
dude.
crazy. I don't know how that would turn out.
I love,
Yeah.
dude. I love my Batman so much, and I will give it to y'all. I
No
will
one can
give
be
it
a
to y'all.
co-host of this show without loving drawing Batman. That's just a fact.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's just a given that everyone loves Batman. That's a given.
Well, all right, cool guys. You want to call it a night there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, great. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in and checking this out, part 2. If you haven't checked out part 1, please For the love of God, go back and watch part 1. Look at the dogs and cats. We've got everything. We've got dogs and
Look
cats
at 'em.
living in harmony.
Look at all of the dogs and cats.
Yeah,
It's Lawrence and Sadie back again for another fun time.
yeah. And
Sadie
that's what
laughed.
and that's what you come here for. Ink Drink Think for is watching the fun animals.
That's right.
Anyways,
We
guys,
got him.
we got them. We got the animals.
We got him.
Anyways, guys, make sure you check out the links in the description below. You can find our Instagrams there. Follow and support all of the artistic endeavors that we're pursuing, whether it's comics, albums, posters, propaganda, you name it. We're doing the works. Anyways, guys, this has been Mike Pickard, joined by my wonderfully talented co-hosts and friends, Johnny Wise, Nate Wells, and Teacher Todd himself, Todd Blackwood. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and make sure you come back next week for episode 7.
Nice one.
See you guys. Cheers.
Yeah.
See ya.
Well done.